So there was an ideal, and when that became more accessible, that ideal was thrown out, right? And whatever was scarce, that's what we sold, and that's what celebrities went to. Whatever was scarce, big butts were scarce, so now we're all going to get big butts, right? And it's just constantly this pendulum swing back and forth. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Before we get into today's amazing episode, I want to make sure you've hit that follow button wherever you're listening to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. Also, if you like to listen to this pod on the go, make sure you have those downloads turned on. As always, I love a 5-star rating and review, and I want to thank you for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed associate marriage and family therapist in the state of Arizona, and the founder of the Mindset Matter coaching program. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited you took this time out for yourself to learn something about your physical and mental health, and that is what we talk about here. If you haven't already, you're going to hear me say this multiple times. If you're watching my face on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. The more subscribers, the better. Do it for this. So these damn people will stop reaching out to me and being like, your YouTube channel sucks. Subscribe, please. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, make sure to hit that follow button because, again, that is the easiest way to support this podcast. And I know that a very large percentage of people who listen to this podcast are not actually subscribed or following us. So please do that for me. Today, I have a question for you. The question is, if thinness is now something that most people can achieve through a pen, what happens to beauty ideals? If everyone can become thin now and achieve this thing that they haven't been able to achieve, what becomes the elite? What becomes the exception? Question to ask yourself. Also, second question is, what happens to the woman who's been chasing her whole life to achieve thinness? And once she gets there, what happens when disappointment sets in that her life is not changed? That's what we're talking about today. We are talking about status symbol. We are talking about how status symbols are constantly shifting and changing. And more importantly, we're talking about how thousands of individuals are going to run into a very, very, very devastating reality when it comes to what they thought being thin would fix. So welcome back. As I mentioned, this episode has been living in my head. It's something that I've been watching in practice, watching on the news, watching on social media. With the increase of GLP-1s, not something that is new to our listeners. We've been talking about this for 2 years. But what we haven't really been talking about is how GLP-1s are rewriting the beauty ideals and the standards and doing so in real time. And I think that's really important for us to talk about because I think when something is, in the case of GLP-1s, it's like too good to be true. We don't think about the long-term implications or even, and obviously I'm not even talking about the health implications. I'm talking about the societal implications. And I'm not here to demonize the drugs. I'm not here to celebrate the drugs. I'm here to talk about the cultural machinery that these drugs live in, the system that created these drugs and therefore are going to make these drugs obsolete. That is going to happen. And fair warning, I'm not going to be nice about it. So if you're here for sugarcoating, not the podcast for you, because it's my whole brand. But if you're here for a history lesson, I'm going to give you one shortly. So I want you to think about your body has always been on a billboard, right? And whatever is on that billboard is the thing that is hard to obtain, right? The thing that is hardest to access in regards to the body figure on that board. And when it comes to beauty ideals, I think about one of those electronic boards. I was actually driving back from Tempe, Arizona, and my friend Kelsey, who is part of our F45 community when I used to coach there, She won Teacher of the Year, and she was on the billboard. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I want to get my phone out and take a picture. And boom, it was changed. That's how quickly beauty ideals change, especially when they make the elite normal. I'm going to talk about that. Body ideals track with scarcity. And by scarcity here, I mean by what most people cannot obtain. Whatever is hard to obtain becomes the status symbol. You get where I'm going with this? And the moment that the thing becomes accessible, the rich change the rules. The elite change the rules. So let's walk you through a history lesson. 1400 to 1700 Renaissance era to the Rococo era. Never heard that before until I did my notes. At this time, food was scarce. If you were a peasant person, you were working in the fields, you had tan skin and small bodies because you did physical labor. And therefore, if you were wealthy, you had a full rounded body, rounded belly, soft kind of look, and you were pale as fuck because you did not go outside. You stayed inside, someone fanning you, feeding you, and you were a symbol of wealth, right? You had access to food, right? You had people who did the physical labor for you. And if you think about like Marie Antoinette's court, right? The Rubens painting, everyone in there is round, they're pale, and they're softer. So that's up to around the 1800s, but it shifts in around the 1890s to 1920s. So we think Great Gatsby, we think Industrial Revolution era. This is when food became more accessible and cheaper to make. This is also where the onset of convenience, hyper-palatable foods came about. If you think about this era of Great Gatsby, you think of the flapper. Thin, skinny flapper. And also, not only that, but this very, I think of like, not ambiance, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like gold and silvers and all these sparkles. You think of Great Gatsby, you think of feathers, right? It's just very luxurious. That's the word I want. And being in this thin, luxurious flapper era represented freedom. It represented this modern newness, and more importantly, it represented new money. This is when the revolution, this is what I'm talking about with Rockefeller and Carnegie and Ford and all of these new machineries, the railroad, right? The Model T, they allowed for us to do more. And if you had money, you had access to these things. So you had access to travel, right? And so Coco Chanel actually around this time introduced a tan skin because that meant you had money, time, and the ability to travel for leisure to the Riviera and this and that. This is where these big ships are coming in and they are, going across the pond. So we moved from the peasant laborer being thin and dark skin, and now that became the status symbol, right? The moment that the masses started catching up to that, the elite once again moved the goalposts. So now let's go to post-war abundance, 1950s. This is very domestic, very family-oriented era. We have our men coming back from war. They've just got a new lease on life, and what they want from their partners is fed, feminine, and fertile. They want to create families. They have this money. They have this time. They, being a veteran means a lot in this country, even though we treat them like shit, but that's another podcast. I'm a therapist. And being skinny and thin did not promote fertility. And that's been historically the ideal, especially in, very early days. Having a fertile, fed woman meant that your child would more than likely survive, right? But at this time, we also have the wonderful, the fabulous Marilyn Monroe's, the Sophia Loren's, the Elizabeth Taylor's, right? The size 16 kind of cinched waist, hourglass, soft hip look. And it was gorgeous. I used to have photos all over. And curves were a signal of prosperity, of desirability, of wellness. 1950s, love that for us. But then the pendulum changes, the pendulum shifts, and Twiggy enters the building. Twiggy brings us something that was totally different, this kind of androgynous, boyish look. It really moved away from the ideal of the housewife or like the bombshell into this kind of rebellious, androgynous era, right? I think the 60s too is where we had a lot of protests, a lot of change, very good rebellion, may I say. And between the 60s and the 80s, there was a lot of change in regards to feminism and women and what we could do, what we could have. And we kind of shifted. I feel like at this time there was this split, whereas prior femininity was the focus. Not to say that there wasn't, the more athletic and tomboy, quote unquote, type of individual. But I think around the 80s, 90s is where it shifted, where you had the like feminine and whatever that looked like. And then you had this kind of more masculine female too. So I'll talk about that. So the 80s come along, and this is where we kind of, we have the supermodel. This is the introduction of the supermodel. We have Cindy, we have Christy, we have Naomi. We are focused on these women, and these women are tall, right? They're tall, they're toned. They're not thin, they're toned. They have these kind of strong bodies. And in this era, we have the VCR, we have aerobics, we have Jane Fonda, we have the Thigh Master with Summers. And working out and being toned and having muscle tone came into the picture for the first time in the 1980s, right? This was a conversation that women now also not only needed to be thin, but they had to have these strong, lean bodies. And it was very glamorized, right? Because Cindy Crawford, I don't remember her being rail thin, but I was also young in the 80s. I was born in the 80s. So I don't remember her being rail thin, but I just remember her being kind of curvy too and tall. I remember her being tall. They were all very tall, right? And this is where muscle entered the chat, which we love for us. But then the heroin chic 90s comes along and says, screw you. Grunge culture is entering the building, and this rejection of 80s excess. Whenever I think of 80s excess, I think of the movie American Psychopath. Is that what it's called? I think of like those ugly convertibles, big box suits, people doing like cocaine all the time. We're in this Reagan era in the 80s. People were, I think, what was it that they finally were able to afford homes and this, that, the other thing. But then the 90s come, and now we're in a recession, right? Now we're in recession. Grunge culture comes in play. However, I do remember that the movie Clueless did come out in the 90s, and I wore dresses for the first time. So I wore my little high socks with my little cute dress and my little shoes. Oh, I was Cher Horvitz all day long. But the look, other than Alicia Silverstone, and the Kate Moss heroin chic, was that hollowed out look, the kind of thin, frail, fragile skin, like a waif look. And it went from this powerful, strong woman to this kind of thin heroin addict, grunge. There was the concert hall in LA, actually, where River Phoenix died. Like, that was the scene, right? That was the scene, to be with the Courtney Loves and all of that, the Kurt Cobains. So that was the 90s, okay? Now, for me, I had a little bit of different. So it's so interesting because I am Hispanic. I grew up in a mainly Hispanic community, and my friends were people of color mainly. And the friends that were white were Hispanic too. I think of my best friend, Melissa. She's urban. And we didn't see that. I personally saw Selena, I saw J-Lo, I saw TLC, I saw Whitney, Mariah, I saw Gloria Estefan, I saw, In Vogue, Don't Let Go. I always think I can sing that song, and then I can't. That's what I saw. So, like, I wasn't exposed to the, like, grunge. Like, I remember Courtney Love, and I remember thinking, like, ugh. Because my girls were, hat to the back. I got my pants down real low. If you know that song, you better put it in the chat. Anyway, I do this alone. There's no one else in this room. Anyway, so that's what I saw. So I'm over here thinking that everyone's dressed this way. And then I get to college and I'm like, what the fuck? Wait a minute. I remember in college. Now let's go to the 2000s. We've got The Simple Life. We've got Paris Hilton, Von Dutch, low-rise jeans, tan skin, belly button rings, high like cut off shirts, bones. If your hip bone stuck out, you were good to go. I personally did have hip bones sticking out, but I had the longest torso in the world. So unless I wore like crazy platforms, I look like one of those guys in a car dealership, like flapping around just my torso, like, rah! It was such a long torso. And money. It wasn't until I got to college that I was like, what is Abercrombie and Fitch? What is Hollister? And if you walk in Hollister, you better believe you're going to feel like the ugliest person in the world. I have never felt uglier than walking into an Abercrombie and Fitch or Hollister. Thank you for that. It was the Tumblr culture, right? And this is the body type that us millennial, Gen Z, whatever the fuck you call us. This is why we have so many body image issues, because not only was it in our face that we had to look a certain way, but now we have these reality TV shows. That's when they started. We have The Simple Life. You have Nicole Richie being told she's fat because she doesn't look like Paris Hilton, right? And so I think that's why we struggle a lot. Because it started becoming even more in our face as we go along. Then the 2010s come along and we swap again. We go from rail ass thin, no butt, no boobs, Paris Hilton. Did she have fake tits? No, she didn't. To Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian 2010, right? 2007, I think it was. 2014, the Kardashians entered the chat. And the ideal flipped hard. It flipped so hard. And it flipped very, very dangerously. Out were the thigh gaps, right? And the washboard abs. In were small waists, teeny waists, big hips, and a round butt. You guys, from 2015 to 2019, BBL procedures, which were illegal, increased by 90%, with over 40,000 being performed in 2019 alone. On top of this, we have the introduction of Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, of course. You know, as running. And this included filters and the ability to change the way your body looked, right? Being able to make it smaller, being able to make your butt bigger. And these cosmetic features, these cosmetic surgeries were normalized. I remember being in high school and girls getting boob jobs for their graduation present. Now, something I want to say about BBLs and BBL culture and the Kardashian culture. This is not only when we saw the influx of BBLs. We saw an influx of big lips. We saw an influx of, you know, even like my hair, the way it looks right now, right? So I have extensions in my hair. We saw the thick eyebrow. Did I say that already? The long eyelashes. So BBL bodies are features that have always existed in Black culture, right? And for Black women, the curves and that hip to waist ratio, those features were often mocked and marginalized on Black women. And they were mocked for decades. And it wasn't until we didn't celebrate them until we showed those features on a lighter skinned reality star that they became popular, right? The beauty industry has picked up on Black, Hispanic, women of color features and put them on white bodies and called it like revolutionary, called it magic, whatever you think. And then they played that role for, I don't know, what do you think, until 2022? And then they dropped it, right? They dropped it. And I just think that's something we never talk about, is that look, even today, you guys, women are still working on building their glutes, right? They are trying to have a small waist at the same time. They are making their, it's probably gone now, but like the thicker eyebrow is probably gone now. I don't see as many, I still see women doing the fuller lips, but I think that's kind of calming down, because what happens is we take this shit too far. People start looking fucking crazy. But also, let's go to today, right? So we have this kind of shift where Kim Kardashian shows up at the Met Gala. She's super small. She's fitting in Marilyn Monroe's dress, which she shouldn't have fucking done in the first place. And we kind of move away from BBL. We go into clean girl aesthetic, and this resurgence of ultra thinness starts to shape bodies again. And Ozempic enters the chat. So across, even you think of the 2026 award season, you have stylists, you have photographers, you have all of these people noting in their feedback. And obviously we can see it in their pictures that there's these very sharp silhouettes. So what I mean by sharp is like very narrow frames, very sharp lines in regards to like clavicles, extreme thinness in the face, hollowed out face, very thin skin, hollowed out temples here, that sunken in look, teeth looking like they're too big for your mouth, right? This is the standard again. This is the standard as of today, April 20th, 2026. And everyone now is reaching for that standard because Ozempic has created an opportunity for more people to achieve thinness. So you see women who have struggled for decades with losing weight and using a GLP-1 to do that. And it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful for someone to feel more comfortable in their bodies, because I know from talking to thousands of women, it's hard living in a larger body. It can be really painful for some. It can be hard to move in a way. It can be embarrassing in certain like social instances, like getting on a plane or watching a movie. Those types of things really are a struggle for them. However, what we're seeing is that obviously these Ozempic GLP-1s are being taken advantage of or being used in the wrong way, where we're seeing celebrities, and this is my take on this, is why we're seeing celebrities look so thin is because everyone else is kind of, so you think of the masses and the celebrity, right? It's like Pac-Man, and it's getting closer to Pac-Man. The masses are starting to catch up, so I think the celebrities are trying to look thinner and thinner, and I have a prediction on what's going to turn out next. Okay, so currently that's where we're at. But if you look at the timeline, every single one of these shifts has followed a very similar pattern, right? So whatever became the ideal, so there was an ideal, and when that became more accessible, that ideal was thrown out, right? And whatever was scarce, that's what we sold, and that's what celebrities went to. Whatever was scarce, but big butts were scarce, so now we're all going to get big butts, right? And it's just constantly this pendulum swing back and forth. There's small little changes, right? Meaning if you think about like Twiggy versus the Flapper era. Flapper era, a little bit more feminine, Twiggy more androgynous, right? But still thin, ideal, right? You think of the Marilyn Monroe, that was more voluptuous and feminine. You think of the BBL, took it a little bit extreme with the booties. They look terrible. Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to talk about bodies, but some of these, like, come on. We know that's not real. And that's the other thing, too, is with the BBL era, women were really thinking that they could walk around with a fat ass and a small waist. That's not normal. The only person I know that had a very small waist and a big butt was my friend Crystal. And she was born that way. Okay? So we can see the swings. All right? So let's talk about where we're at right now. A few things. I'll talk about my prediction, but I want to talk about something more important first. The fact that more people have accessibility to thinness, like I could probably go and get a vial of GLP-1 right now. I could find one right now if I wanted to and stick myself with it. And I'm not overweight, right? It's highly accessible and the industry knows that you want it. I just found the thing that you want. You want thinness. You want to be thinner. You want to lose weight. And I'm not talking to that person who's like, yeah, Christina, well, I'm doing it the right way, da, 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 da. But even you, actually, I am talking to you. Because I think when people think of being in the Ozempic era, they are learning to, quote unquote, do it the right way. It means they're getting more protein in. They're trying to strength train, right? They're trying to maintain their muscle mass because they know that GLP-1s at the rapid weight, because this is starvation that is happening with a GLP-1, you're going to lose weight at a rapid rate, and that is going to cause you to lose muscle mass. Therefore, you are going to have a less shapely, less strong, skinnier version of yourself. And if we think that thinness alone, which I think this might sound stupid to my listeners, but so many people think that achieving thinness will provide them confidence and love and a different relationship with food and a different relationship with their emotions. As a therapist, I'm tired of these influencers pretending like they know what they're talking about here just because they read a book. As a therapist who's been doing this for over 15 fucking years, have worked in all levels of care of eating disorder, can guarantee that being in a smaller body will not change the relationship with any of those things. And you will convince yourself that it will. People will see this and write in my comments, well, let me ask you a question. What happens when you think about gaining the weight back? Exactly. You live in constant fear of gaining the weight back. Your food noise has shifted from food noise over food in excess and wanting all the donuts and the this and that to, oh my God, I don't want to eat that. I don't want to gain weight. What if I gain weight? Oh my God, I had that. I'm going to go do this. I need to go work out. Da, 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 da. It just shifted, but it's socially acceptable in your eyes, not in mine. You're living in constant fear. And you thought by being thin, yeah, you might have received praise. People, oh my God, you look so great. That will fade too. So what's next? And I think that this is going to be what I call the great disappointment. The great disappointment that so many women will get to this place, and probably a lot of you listening are already there. And if you're not being real with yourself, that is not my problem. You didn't get the thing because you didn't change your relationship with yourself. You didn't learn how to listen to yourself, give yourself space to ask for help, become vulnerable, understand your emotions, understand your relationship with food. You just turned it off. It's like someone putting on Spanx and being like, I'm skinny again. Eventually they come off. And that to me is the biggest thing in regards to this era. Is this is the first time that we have had the accessibility of thinness. And I just think it's something that is going to be it's selfishly good for me because it exposes everything. It exposes the lie. It exposes the lie. So that's just, I'm going to leave that there. What my prediction is that, as I talked about, culture, when thinness is a status symbol, as we had discussed, the status symbol works because not everyone can obtain it. The moment that everyone can obtain it, it stops becoming a status symbol. And the elite, the rich, the famous, the trendsetters, they're not going to stop competing. They're not going to stop trying to feel special. So they have to adjust. And my prediction, ready, is muscle. Muscle is going to be the new status symbol. Now, we already have muscle mommies now. We've already talked about muscle in regards to perimenopause and menopause. We've talked about muscle in regards to longevity, but it's not the status symbol yet, right? Because everyone's still out here poking themselves everywhere. Muscle. Visible, earned, lean muscle. Why? Because you can't inject it. Yes, there are peptides that will help you grow muscle, but I've seen people on those peptides and they're not any stronger looking than I am. You can't Ozempic your way to strength, right? And you could take testosterone, but you're going to look bulky, right? I'm talking lean, earned muscle, visible muscle. And if you think about it from a status symbol, this is how it's going to go. Okay, you've got I'm going to name drop someone, like Kelly Osbourne, right? And she's been through a lot. She's grieving her dad's death. I understand that as someone who also has lost her dad. I've lost my dad after her, I believe. And she has taken it to the extreme, right? Now there could be some sort of addiction to the weight loss or even eating disorder there or something else. And she's going to say, I can't do this anymore because obviously now everyone's doing it. Here's my healing journey. This is how I'm recovering. This is how I'm bettering myself. And because getting stronger requires you to have equipment, right? Have trainers, be able to afford whole proteins, time, leisurely time, recovery, right? Consistency, and time, years, really. It will be the new status symbol. The stronger I am, the more I have a routine, the more access I have, the more natural I am, right? I'm not. So if you think about someone who's lost weight everyone's going to assume they did it by Ozempic. Like I was watching Temptation Island and that guy Mikey that's on there, he's a little bit in a bigger body and now he's lost like 200 pounds and instantly, or he's lost 60 pounds. He's at 200 pounds. Instantly I go Ozempic. That's shitty. But muscle, and you know the look, testosterone muscles look very different than earned muscles. No one's going to question how you got that. And I think that is going to be the new status symbol. And it's going to be all about recovery and hopefully longevity. But we'll get there. Muscle requires leisure, requires money, and it requires knowledge. And it's not something that can be faked or rushed. The other thing that I'm hoping also is included in this is posture, right? Mobility. And I think a lot of people are going to focus on their face, their skin, right? So right now, like filler for people with Ozempic is like on a high, but like who wants to have filler in their face forever? Like, why do we keep putting shit in our bodies? As someone who gets Botox, full send, love Botox. But I even think about that because I was going to do a peptide for my ADHD and I'm like, you know what? Let's just chill out on this shit that I'm putting in my body. But I think people will start focusing more on their skin and like filling out here. But I hope, you know, things like grip strength. I'm not that a celebrity is going to be walking around like, look at my grip strength, or here's my VO2 max, here's my HRV. But, you know, a lot of these things that do help support longevity and increasing improving metabolic markers. That's what I hope it gets to. But again, when we're looking at status symbol muscle is where I think it's going to go. It's where I think it's going to go. And it's not going to be a size because being muscular, right, it has nothing to do with really the scale per se. And weight can vary. It's really going to be about capability. And capabilities take time, they take money, they take access, and it's still the same game. It's still the same status game. We're just wearing a different uniform. Now, for you, you're like, okay, cool. So now I've got to do that. No, we don't have to do that. What I would like us to talk about next is, now you've heard of the pattern. How do you get out of it? We need to defect from the game. Take the uniform off. Get out of the game. Because, you know, if thin isn't the answer, right? And the muscle is about to be weaponized in the same way that thinness was, because now it's being, you know, it's what the elites do. What do you do? What do we do to save ourselves? So we've got to stop playing this fucking game. We have to defect. And defection looks like someone who still takes care of their body, of course. You eat well, you move, you lift, you sleep, but you change the metrics, right? We're changing the metrics. And instead of thinking about how small we can be or what look we can look like, aesthetics, I want you to ask, what do we want to be able to do? What do I want to still be able to do at age 40? And honestly, this is a question I ask myself a lot, because being a dancer for 20 plus years, my body has been through the ringer. So right now, my focus is on joint health, muscle, of course, and cognitive health. Because as I'm getting older, I really am struggling cognitively, and the cog fog is real. But then also, what do I want to be able to do at 60, 70, 80? I truly, whatever the social media is then, or the media, I want to be looked at as someone, want to be looked up to as, I would like to be as healthy as her, right? I want for people to say, wow, you know, like I do to my mother-in-law. She's 80 and I'm just in awe of, she still plays pickleball. She's crushing life. She gardens, she walks, she moves wheelbarrows around. Like, she is so badass. I want to be that. That is what I want to be. So what do you want to be? What do you want to be able to do? Not what you'll look like. What do you want to be able to do? Here's some real markers of winning as we get older. Can you get off the floor without your hands? Can you catch yourself if you fall? Can you recover from a surgery, an illness, an injury? Can you travel without fear of hurting yourself? Can you sleep deeply? Can you regulate your nervous system? Can you manage stress? Can you show up for your life full volume for 40 more years? Not what's going to look good right now. Who knows the long-term implications on our health of these types of drugs, right? Well, you don't. Class action lawsuit, I think, is already happening. Is crazy. So what this looks like in practice is strength training, of course, not for a look, but for longevity, getting your protein in for muscle preservation, but not having this like perfect macro split that you're putting on Instagram and talking about what you eat in a day. The amount of protein can range. It could be 90 grams to 150 grams. And for the same person, depending on their goals and figuring out what works best for you. Walking, not to get your steps in, but for cardiovascular and mental health. Learning to sleep. If we took the money that we put into the Ozempic and diet industry and put it into sleep and people slept better, we'd probably knock out a pretty high percentage of all-cause mortality and health issues in general. Of course, nutrition as self-care, not as punishment, and progress looking at capacity over how we look. So that's how we get out of it. But even just looking at it, recognizing it, noticing it, like this will pass. And I'm just over here chilling. I cannot wait where your girl is like, oh, look, she's got a body like such and such and so and so. You know what I was thinking about? I took a little bathroom break between, I had recorded this once and I didn't like it. So I recorded it again. I do that sometimes. And you know what? I've always been told, wow, you look really strong. My people look at me always as someone who is strong, muscular, who could kick their ass. That's something I hear a lot. I don't want to mess with her. I can think back. I mean, like I've talked to you guys, even in high school, it was something that I did not like about myself. And now I embrace it. And I'm happy to say that I have not fluctuated away from that. You know, now, as I've shared, it hasn't always been a healthy relationship, nor the way I got there. But I'm happy to say that that is my constant. So find your constant. Find your constant and knowing that right now in my constant, I still, even though strong was my constant, I had to make sure that everything else was constant with it, including my physical health, my mental health, my cognitive, my emotional health. So find yours. I hope you guys liked this episode. I think it was great, but I'm biased. Again, if you haven't already, make sure subscribe to the YouTube channel. I want to hit 300 subscribers. Can you believe I have more videos than subscribers? Oh, so lame. And if you're listening on your pods in the ears, make sure to hit that follow button. We love a 5-star rating and review. Someone gave me a low review, so now my review on Spotify is 4.7. So if you could hit 5 stars, let's just push them out of the way. And if you have someone in your life who needs to hear this, please share this with them. That's one of the best ways to get this podcast out. Word of mouth is a real thing. It's still a thing. So please use that to your advantage. And other than that, if you're interested in coaching with me, I only have a few spots open. I am shifting to a completely new coaching focus, which is only going to allow for 12 individuals to work with me. It's not going to be right away, but just know that that's where I'm going to be going to, a very kind of high touch program. But for now, you can still work with me. So check out the show notes below. And other than that, I'm going to leave you the same way I do every single week, reminding you that what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.